Hey, it's the handsome Aaron here making another video for the first time in a while because I just watched a documentary on Netflix and I need to talk about it because I didn't like it. It's called Fantastic Fungi. It's like a nature documentary about mushrooms. Because that sounds exciting. That sounds like a fun thing to watch on a Friday evening. Um, I thought it was a Netflix original, but it turns out it's not. I did like 2 minutes of googling before sitting down here to record this. Um, it's just on Netflix. I guess it came out in 2019. It was like in theaters even. I guess. But what is it? And why do I want to talk about it? Well, it's made by some guy. I don't I can't remember his name. I looked it up. It's very Eastern European, Trebanowski or something like that. And it's narrated by Captain Marvel, and it's just about mushrooms. It's about mushrooms. It's got all these really beautiful time lapse shots. Just watching the mushrooms explode up out of the ground and everything, and they're really really good, and they know they're really good because when you like preview the movie and you watch like the trailer, that's what it is. It's all these beauty shots of nature and of the time lapses. Um, and they're really great. Like they're amazing. That's really cool to see the mushrooms just exploding up out of the earth like that and out of trees and stuff. And you get some scientific information about the mushrooms. You learn about the mycelium, the their underground network of I guess they're not roots, but they're like roots, and how they like intertwine with each other, and even like trees and stuff, and so they're all kind of like connected and can like feed off of each other, kind of to help support one another, and all the important stuff funguses and mushrooms do for the life cycle of the forest. They break things down. Kind of like science stuff you learned in like school. Really, there's some neat stuff that I never knew. The mycelium stuff is neat, but it does talk a while about just like basically the life cycle of the forest. Mushrooms as decomposers. And that stuff's neat. However, the reason this movie pissed me off is that it's basically just a giant lie because all that stuff I just said, that stuff is like in the trailer, and that stuff is how the movie describes itself, and all of that stuff is in the first like 20 minutes. After like 20 minutes into the movie, it becomes a different movie. It becomes a different documentary. After we get introduced to this guy who tells a story about how he like ate a bunch of psychedelic mushrooms and like climbed up into a tree and started like he had like a hallucinogenic experience. Because from that point on, which is like I don't know, it at least felt like 20 minutes in, that's what it's about. It goes from being like a nature documentary, which is again what it like sells itself as, to being about mushrooms as like drugs, both as just like psychedelic drugs for fun, I guess, and as like medicinal. It's very important to the movie that you know that drugs have not drugs. Mushrooms have these medicinal qualities, but that's what it is from that point on, and it follows this guy Stamets, I think his name was Paul Stamets. It follows him a lot as he talks about his work with mushrooms and all the things his company is involved with. It actually focuses so much on him and his company um, that it feels like the movie was made by him. And I looked it up. It's not. He didn't make it. And I don't think he had anything involved with the production of it other than being in it. But it just after that like 20-minute mark, it just hard turns and just follows him so heavily and just all the things his business does. That it feels like you're being advertised to by this guy, but it's just the direction they chose to go with it. You watch him give like TED talks and you see them doing like clinical experiments and it's all about the psychedelic qualities of these mushrooms, and it's not a nature documentary anymore. Is my point, and um, it's like so focused on the drugs and the medicinal and the psychedelic qualities of it that sometimes they even talk about stuff that his company does, other things like that sounds really interesting, actually too. Like they use the mushrooms to like kill ants, I guess, and to like apparently just like fix oil spills. They throw that out there that like you can throw mushrooms onto like oil spills and it'll just like fix the oil spill is what they say. Like they don't go that far, but and they just throw it out there like they're not interested in talking about it, even though he's claiming to have fixed a major problem with just some mushrooms. They say it and move on so they can get back to talking about like clinical tests with the psychedelics of the mushrooms. And that's most of the movie until the last like I don't know 5 minutes, and then it goes back to more beauty shots of nature and time lapses of the mushrooms and Captain Marvel um, narrating again. That is the thing. Another thing, they sell the fact that they have Captain Marvel as the narrator pretty hard, but she only narrates. She's not really the narrator. She only does the intro and the outro. She never narrates in between, like during the movie. She doesn't explain any of the like science or ideas or anything like that. She just does the intro and the outro, which is very like flowery kind of language about like how beautiful, important, and beautiful mushrooms are, basically. Um, so she's that's what I mean about it feels like the documentary like just lying to you and tricking you. The fact that they sell it as like Captain Marvel is the narrator and she couldn't have been in the studio for more than an hour recording her lines. She's so little. And the fact that it is just a nature documentary for the first 20 minutes and then it becomes this totally other thing that just pisses me off. like the whole idea exploring mushrooms as like drugs and medicine and stuff doesn't really interest me. I wouldn't have watched a documentary about that if I had known, just because it's not really a subject I care about. I'm not angry about the subject matter. I'm angry that I feel tricked into watching this movie. Um, uh, yeah. I mean, it's like there's. Imagine if you were trying to watch a documentary about like bees. This is what I was thinking about while I was watching it. Imagine if I watched like a Planet Earth documentary about like bees, and it's like, oh, bees, they're important, and like here's the life cycle of a bee, and here's how they interact with their environment and different kinds of bees, and then it just cut to like a honey factory, and it was just about that factory for the rest of the movie. And it's like I guess it's tangentially related to bees, but it's not real. There's a difference between when it comes to like a documentary or anything really, I guess, when it comes to nature, and there's a difference between appreciating the thing in nature as a part of just the world and the amazingness of nature, and then appreciating something as like a resource that humans can exploit and consume. And that can also be interesting. But this documentary doesn't seem to know the difference between those two things. Um, Or if it does know the difference, it might know the difference, because the more cynical part of me is they do know the difference. They just know that more people are interested in the idea of a nature documentary about mushrooms than they are in a documentary about ongoing tests regarding hallucinogenics. That's a really weird subject for a documentary. So I think it's more just intentional misleading about what's in this documentary. Because it sells Captain Marvel, which, by the way, does Captain Marvel sound like a little kid all the time? I don't remember that movie. But when she's doing her narrating in this, she sounds like a child. And it might just be that she's trying to speak very calmly and softly that makes her sound that way. But she sounds like a little kid. I don't remember her sounding like that in the movie, Captain Marvel. But I also don't remember Captain Marvel very well. I think Captain Marvel is like Starfire, if I remember. There's a cat. I don't really remember. But I got distracted. But yeah. So I don't know. I wouldn't recommend. I think the documentary just actually is a lot less interesting in the second hour too, in that hour stretch. But like I said, it's also just not a subject matter that interests me either. My main point is, if you're gonna watch this thing, it's on Netflix, but it's not exclusively on Netflix, as it turns out. You can watch it elsewhere. Just be aware of what it is, because they're pretty deceptive about it. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about this. This already lasted longer than I thought it would. Who knows? Maybe I'll come back to making these videos a little bit more regularly. I just had to get that off my chest.